Newcastle are back in the Champions League. You've probably seen all the pictures going around of Alan Shearer, Shola Miobi, and Lua, all the boys playing in the Champions League. Good feels. But it's going to change. They have to now chase for trophies. They've got, obviously, a lot of money in the bank, and there's a lot of names already flying about. I mean, I've seen Neymar already this week. I saw Mbappe literally 2 days ago. A lot of players will be linked. And aside from Alexander Isak and probably Anthony Gordon, total spend was about 100 million. They've actually managed pretty well. They've run a pretty tight ship. But now they're in the Champions League. Clubs know they've got money. They are going to ask for lots of money. And one of the areas where people have gone, they need an upgrade, is in central midfield. Is there any options that you've come across that you think might be good options?
Well, I was looking at a list of suggested targets, and Seko Fofana is surprising me on there, because I actually remember him really vividly from being a Manchester City youth player. I used to watch him a lot, and he's I know his career's developed really nicely, because he's one of those players where you follow him because you do your team for a while, and he's become a really impressive midfielder, and he's just such a strong, athletic but technical player with capable of a big goal as well, and a really kind of rangy passing range. I like him. I really like him. He's just creative. About 6'2", good dribbler, strong, and he would really suit. Very similar, I guess he'd suit that midfield alongside Joelinton and Bruno. He'd just fit that down to a T, and I would really like him to come back to the Premier League to see how he's developed, because I think he left City and went to Udinese, and he's carved out a really good career for himself, and he would be a really, really interesting signing for them. Top 3% in Europe in successful take-ons, 1.72 per 90. Impressive.
I want to put forward an option as well. Napoli Zielinski. He's been linked to Liverpool so many times. Although he's 29, he's at the sort of end of his career where Newcastle might not look to invest. 3 goals, 8 assists, all-action midfielder in the top 1% in Europe for chances created with 123.
Top 1, not bad, eh?
That is not bad at all. It depends how big the top 1% is, but it's pretty good. I do wonder, with Napoli having won the league, all the turmoil going on with the managerial things there, and players will be leaving because they've now achieved Napoli's primary goal. Could that be maybe a little bit of a cheap upgrade in an area where maybe they may look to ship off Willock or Longstaff? You do imagine there will be a couple of changes in midfield, potentially at the back as well. Anyone else you've come across?
Yeah, not on this list. Ryan Gravenberch. I really, really like him. Getting more minutes now under Thomas Tuchel at Bayern Munich. I don't know how long Thomas Tuchel's going to be Bayern Munich manager, so we'll see how long that lasts. But he's a player that's kind of come into his own towards back end of the season. A lot of hype. Always been linked with English clubs. If you love Football Manager, you know how good Gravenberch is. I always side him. And a man who shows for the ball and will add a different dynamics at Newcastle midfield in terms of obviously playing alongside Bruno Guimaraes. And as good and as functional as Newcastle midfield have been, they've been over-reliant on the likes of Willock and Longstaff. That stat where they just don't win when Longstaff doesn't play is insane. And Gravenberch is a classy operator that's, I think, built for Premier League football, got a big future ahead of him, and he's a player that I'd love to see week in, week out playing in the Premier League. So Gravenberch is a player that I think will suit this Newcastle team down to a T.
There's also the potential of someone like Zaha on a free transfer. I mean, this could be the Champions League move that he wants, and of course they've got St. Maximin, but 30 years old, Zaha looking for that, that not swan song as such, because he's only 30 these days, isn't that bad, but such an experienced player, and there's an element of magic to his game. He could come alive on those big Champions League nights. I think he's the kind of person as well that would love St James's Park. It's different but same. Selhurst to St James's, very passionate fans and a really intense atmosphere. I would quite enjoy watching Zaha at Newcastle. I think he'd just suit the general vibe of that team, and it could be a really smart signing.
I feel as though people in Croydon and Crystal Palace are going, hold on, we're not similar to Jordan's. But I completely get what you mean.
It's just something about the intensity of it,
like the crowd all really love their players, and he is very affectionate towards Palace fans. He's a bit of a legend there, to be fair.
Yeah.
Another player at Palace who can also operate from the left but also in midfield is Abiri Eze. 10 goals for us. You're a massive fan.
Yeah.
And whenever he does anything, Kwaku is there.
No, Eze is an absolute baller. Obviously, England call up for my boy. And he's a player that obviously it took a long time to come back from injury to get to his best, but we've seen, weirdly enough, under Roy Hodgson, him be unleashed and be a bit more creative. I think he was playing within himself, but he's a player that you wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle going for those domestic-based players that will add that kind of culture to the dressing room and also are good boys, essentially, and are great footballers as well. I think Eberechi could fit into any side, but Newcastle would not be a bad fit for him. And again, that thing of playing at St James's Park, they could really make that stadium fortress it has been this season, and nobody would say no to playing under the lights up in the northeast for Newcastle.
What about potential relegated talent? Because there's always pickings there, isn't it? Leicester, the likes of Harvey Barnes, if they go down, maybe if Everton go down, someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, they don't need a striker, but there's so many quality players that could potentially be available, isn't there?
Can I throw in one wild one?
Of course you can.
He's leaving Barcelona, and his legs have gone. Champions League experience though. Jordi Alba for me would be, mate.
That is a terrible
no.
Dan Burns to Jordi Alba is hilarious.
I just think as a squad player, as a player with experience, as a player who wants to come and collect a final paycheck, as a player that can slot in if needed, I don't hate it, man. And I saw it online. I thought about it. I was like, it doesn't bother me.
That is, football managers have a lot of ventures today. That's classic football manager when you can get an older, experienced player, and it's like stamina is 6, pace is 4, but he's got experience.
It works for me.
I think they will probably look to a left back, but there is another left wing option here. I think Maddison's another great shot at Leicester.
Yeah,
they've
massively
been linked with him so many times. And as you say, I do think Newcastle, the way they've operated, the business they've done, they will look to pick players from areas where maybe other teams aren't really looking and maybe not as glamorous. Gouiri at Rennes has been outstanding this season. 23 years old, 14 goals for assists. One of these players that when I think of Newcastle, I think of Hatem Ben Arfa. I think of like pure vibes players, Laurent Robert, guys that make you fall in love with football.
Here's a list of free transfers, by the way, potentially available. Yuri Tielemans, Ilkay Gundogan, don't do there. Kante potentially on a free transfer. I think it might be available. Kagla Soyuncu at Leicester, Lucas Moura, Naby Keita, Yerry Mina, Adama Traore, some exciting players there, And some of these wouldn't be bad signings, once again, you're just packing your squad out a little bit, but Eddie Howe's been sensational, and he's got a lot out of the players already there. So
it's a tricky period for them because everyone knows they've got money, they've got Champions League football. They haven't spent it massively so far, but it does feel like they're at the point, a bit of a crossroads, where they're gonna eventually. The first one in the window probably sets the tone. If they go and spend 50 million on Zielinski, all of a sudden you're like, here we go, lights out. They're going to go get a really expensive left back. His name will not be Jordi Alba. I'll put my neck on the line now. I don't think Newcastle will sign Jordi Alba.
But in terms of just that, to add a little bit, let's see how aggressive they are, because they've had incredible squad harmony. We've seen it this year in terms of how it's cultivated. But say, for example, you can upgrade on Shah. But he's been great for them this season. Yeah. And you've got to be sensible in terms of how you go about it, because you don't want to disrupt that harmony. You want to obviously upgrade in the position you can upgrade, but you also want to let those players who've been there and been great servants for you know that they're valued, because if they go too aggressive, it could cause issues for them long term. Here's
one for them. Can they tempt Joao Cancelo to the northeast? He's available,
Oh, man. Imagine that. The transfer window is pretty far away. We're all very excited for it. Who do you think Newcastle should sign? Who do you think they will sign? Let us know in the comments.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.